Welcome to the Association 100 podcast. The A100 podcast is an extension of our Association 100 bi-monthly newsletter that focuses on best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies and tactics that work in the world of associations. The podcast will feature meaningful conversations with association professionals across the country, taking a deeper dive into trending topics, offering insights that both inform and inspire.
Welcome back to the A100 podcast. I'm your host, Colin Gallagher, and I'm so excited to welcome our guest today, Chris Michaels, the CEO of the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy. She's an accomplished senior executive with over 34 years of extensive experience leading strategy, governance, finances, human resources, information technology, and operational initiatives in the association community. So we know you're going to get so many amazing takeaways from her today around how to be better in the world of associations and what you can do in your world as well. She expertly leads the strategic direction, business ops, property management, research and education efforts for AAMFT, overseeing a nearly $7 million annual budget and 25,000 plus members. A collaborative communicator, Chris guides the board of directors and key stakeholders on targeted measures to increase competitive status in the behavioral healthcare industry. She graduated college with a math and economics degree and a hunger to learn. Her innate curiosity and internal drive were quickly recognized, and she became the go-to person to identify solutions to challenging situations. Her business leadership has resulted in the creation of 2 million plus development funds for AAMFT, funding for major building upgrades, reserve funding available during the COVID crisis, and a fiscal safety net that buffered a significant property sale. Chris is a visionary thinker, adept at instituting process improvements. A strategic and empathetic leader, she cares deeply about her organization and the people she works with. She's a dedicated advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion principles and works to break down barriers in the workplace. At AAMFT, she modernized the benefit structure and created more inclusive policies, fostering a culture of trust and safety that's led to high staff retention and a positive impact on the workforce, particularly women, single mothers, and employees early in their careers. We're so excited to have her on our show today. Chris, thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And I should mention that Onward and Upward has worked with AAMFT as a client. We worked together back in 2022 and we're working together again now. So we're really excited to have you. We know you all well, but for our listeners that don't know you, I'd love for you to introduce AAMFT and share your journey within the organization to become the CEO today, because I think that's a really cool story, how you've grown through this organization.
Thank you. Yes, the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy has been around in various formats since around 1942. And we really were more of a secondary membership for most people coming from other groups and having other disciplines. And really what happened is it became and congealed into its own profession, where now we have accredited programs. We are licensed in all the states in the United States. We have some countries that have now regulations. And really, it's become its core own profession. And I think that's been a very fascinating journey to watch along the way. For me, I came in like most people, I needed a job. So I came out of college and they hired me. I don't really know why. I really didn't know finance, and that's what they hired me to do. But he said, "Oh, you're a math major. You should be able to figure this out." I didn't understand even what an association was or anything about the mental health arena or anything. And I just very quickly became very passionate about mental health. And our therapist really used systemic approach. So that systems piece really resonated with me as a math and economics business major, really looking at the systems of things and how to fix them. And finding such a wealth of knowledge in the association community. And I didn't realize there was an association for almost everything. And it's just fascinating to me to understand now, looking back, that associations really drive much of what happens in the world. And we don't always realize our own impact. And certainly that's true with AAMFT, with over 25,000 members now. We have people we work with across the globe. And certainly the pandemic has really opened those doors more, realizing that we're more connected than we thought we were because we now can use other means of communication, right? So it's been a fascinating ride for me.
I love that journey, and it's so funny you mentioned about associations for everything. My whole career has been in associations, and I did joke at first that the first 2 years, I couldn't even explain to all of my friends and family what an association was. It took me a little while to get to it, but once you get into that world, wow, the power of associations, it's so impactful, and they really do make such a difference. So I hear you on that.
Absolutely. And I think that as a person coming out and getting a job, to realize that you can work for an organization that has impact beyond just the normal types of things, but it's impacting the community and the world resonates very differently. And I was very happy to be into that very early on. And I think the other thing is the association community is much better at helping individuals find themselves. I didn't know what I liked to do, but I was always given the opportunities to do more if I wanted to, and I would take on those challenges and risk. And I think sometimes we all can become risk averse. I just kept learning, and I get all kinds of projects that most people didn't want to do, and through those, I just kept growing. And I think if you give up on learning, you're not going to grow, and you're not going to have as good of an experience or ride through that journey.
That's such a great point about associations. There is really endless opportunity to grow and try new things that you don't necessarily get in a lot of the corporate world. So that really resonates for sure. Let's talk about the systemic ethics textbook that recently launched. I know this is a long worked on project and a really landmark publication for AAMFT. What's the inspiration behind it? And then how do you really envision it impacting the global practice for marriage and family therapy?
Sure. People talk about ethics in all kinds of shapes and forms, and we have certainly done lots of things over the years on ethics. But we really felt there was an important need to develop a textbook. Now, with all these, we have a lot of accredited programs, and there's people learning about systemic therapy because we're a profession now. It's really important that we have a textbook on ethics that can address many different areas. And this book represents a groundbreaking contribution to our field. And it's really a testament to our commitment to ensuring that marriage and family therapists are equipped with the knowledge and tools to provide the highest standard of care. The textbook is not just a resource, it's really a beacon for how to practice ethically in our profession, guiding our clinicians and educators and students towards excellence in their work and with their clients. And I think that's really critical. And it covers a whole host of different topics, still using the ethics as the primary focus.
Yeah, that's really an amazing resource for so many in the field. And I can imagine a well needed piece to be out there.
Yes. And unfortunately, we were trying to produce it in the middle of COVID. So that was quite the challenge to get to this place and now have this now going out live. And we're getting lots of positive feedback. We know it was a needed resource. And that's probably the most rewarding part of the whole thing.
Definitely. And talking about long fought victories. So AMFT's recent victory in getting marriage and family therapists covered under Medicare is really significant. And like I said, really long fought achievement that you all have been working on. Can you talk to me about the impact this will have on access to mental health services, particularly for Medicare beneficiaries?
Yes, we fought this battle for over 30 years trying to have our family therapists become providers. So we could see you all the way up until the time you entered Medicare. So for us, about continuity of care is one big thing. But the other thing is that our aging population, as we know, the baby boomers is one of the largest generations. And the fact that there's not enough therapists in general to help this population was just mind blowing to me. And the fact that it's taken us so long to try to get in there because we all know mental health is important. It doesn't get easier as we become a member of the senior population. And this is critical for us to allow the Medicare population to be able to have access to good quality therapy. And we're delighted that we finally have now launched in January and we have our therapists are signing up to become Medicare providers. And really, we hope this will help people seek out the therapy and get the help that they need.
Yeah, I would say in general, for me, thinking about mental health, one of the greatest shifts I've seen in the last maybe 5 or 10 years, I don't know exactly when it started, is people being more open about it. You hear people saying, oh, my therapist, or I talked to someone in therapy. And why would we not want to make sure more people had that opportunity? Because it isn't easy, especially after COVID and so many people seeking therapy, to find a therapist, find one that takes your insurance. And so for these Medicare beneficiaries to all of a sudden not be able to have the person they went to or to just not have access to anyone. I mean, what a huge impact to make that change.
Absolutely. And a lot of people were sitting in isolation during COVID. That wasn't helping. And I'm delighted that we have now mental health as part of the conversation because it impacts all of us at all ages, right? All the way down to our kids and all the way up to our parents and grandparents and family, extended family, everyone.
Yeah, so important for sure. So I want to shift gears a little bit. You all have a minority fellowship program that plays a crucial role in supporting underserved communities. Could you talk to me a bit about the objectives behind this program and really the outcomes of this year's community engagement projects?
Sure. Our Minority Fellowship Program is actually housed in our foundation, and that just went through a major rebranding at the end of last year. It's now called the Foundation for the Advancement of Human Systems. The Minority Fellowship Program is a federal grant under SAMHSA with the federal government, and its main focus is dedicated to expanding the delivery of culturally competent mental health and substance abuse services to underserved minority populations and increasing the number of culturally competent marriage and family therapists. And this is big. We've actually been in this program since 2007, and we have over 700 fellows that are alumni now. And they are serving in many different underserved communities and doing some really great work. The community projects is something we added a few years ago, really seeing the need for our fellows to gain practical experience for how to go and work in communities and really preparing them for in the future for getting grants to then go out and do bigger projects. So these community projects really do help them to go in and learn how to navigate through the community and see how the evidence shows that the mental health work that they're doing in those communities are helping. And there's a lot of great evidence that's coming out of these projects to show that if you do that work in the community, you can reduce the issues related around mental health, decreasing suicide rates, and really changing the nature of the community, reducing substance abuse use, really giving people the support and tools they need at the front end. Someone described it to me the other day as we need to go upstream and not wait for them to come down and roll into the downward part of the stream, but we have to go upstream and figure out how to help in the communities and fix some of these problems before they get too big.
That's such a great analogy. And I'm just thinking, I've recently watched some of those documentaries you've seen about the opioid epidemic and what's going on in communities that were destroyed. And can you imagine if some of those resources had been available then and being able to help communities before they get to a place that falls into that? There's just so much that impact and change that can create.
And I think what's important is that work is different. Every community is different. So there's a cultural piece that has to be applied in the group that you're going to see. So one method doesn't work for every single group. You have to develop the ability to modify and adapt to the community that you're serving. And I think a lot of people don't get that. When you get it downstream or you focus too much on an individual, it's a problem. You have to look at the bigger system, the community they're coming from, their family structures, their work environments, their friends, their relationships. And that's what our therapists are really good at doing.
I love that perspective because one size never fits all.
No, it does not. And there's not one family that's the same anymore.
No.
We are all very different. It's no longer just a standard.
Right.
I have a mother living with us for 20 years. She's 78. My husband's 8 years older than me, so he's in a different generational group. He just retired. And I have a son adopted from Guatemala who's 21. So just in our little environment, we have many different things going on. And that's true for everybody.
It really is. And I think that's one of the cool things to see as you experience life, to see how different every family unit can be and know that we all face challenges. We all have good times, bad times, but nothing's the same. It really is cool to see how many different experiences there are out there. So let's talk about your leadership symposium, because I think the Minority Fellowship Program fit into that a bit this year. So I'd like to hear how that went. I know it was this past March. Can you share some highlights and how it's really designed to foster leadership within the MFT community?
Absolutely. This year, I made a big change. We incorporated the Minority Fellowship Program into the Leadership Symposium. We had one keynote that was done with the minority fellows, a couple alum and a couple current fellows. And their focus was really talking about their work in the communities and how other therapists and other people wanting to be leaders as therapists can start to move in that direction. I think that for me was a big piece is how do we embed this community piece into our bigger systems? And for every single breakout session we did, we had one session that was run by one of the fellows to talk about their work. And it really made a significant difference. We have a very diverse group of MFTs that come in, marriage and family therapists, that want to be leaders. And that group is looking younger and younger, and it's more diverse. And I think it's really important for them to hear from a larger group of people, how they're navigating through these systems and really that work in the community. Because I know with my son at 21, he's much more engaged in what's the impact on the community and the world than probably any of us have ever been in our generations. I'm sure people will argue with me about that, but I see some real exciting things coming out of our young generations that is just, it makes me hopeful.
I'm with you on that. I have so much hope when I see the things that I see kids his age. I know it's technically an adult. When you see people in that 20-year-old range, I feel like they care more than even my generation did. I don't feel like I had those feelings at 20. I was not super involved in what was going on in the world yet. And it is really cool to see that engagement. And then when you talk about the leadership symposium and seeing younger people and more diversity, I think for any association, it's a huge struggle right now is how do we get younger members involved? A lot of associations have most members that are a bit older and maybe near retirement age because that age group, you just joined your association. That was what you did. And I don't think younger millennials and Gen Z necessarily have gotten that message yet. And for them to join, they have to see themselves. They're the most diverse generation ever. They have to see that in an association to feel like they belong there.
Yes, and in part, one of the other things we do with this event is we launch our leadership certificate cohort each year. So this year we put out a call for scholarships, and we've been doing it for the last few years. But we shifted gears on how we were marketing that a bit, and we had over 50 people submit applications for these scholarships, and we usually only do 5. The stories and the work that they're all doing were so unique and different and diverse that we went ahead and we upped that to 10 scholarships this year. We actually have 24 that's in the cohort. We keep them small so that we can have more interaction. But it's not just, I often see associations or groups do these leadership certificate programs, but they're one and done. It's like they're all cookie cutter, right? We take ours and we really embed our systemic therapy piece into it and the relational part and really the networking. And how do we help them navigate through that to create better directions and leadership pathways for themselves? Our therapists can work in almost every system that you can imagine. So, how do we give them the tools they need to go in and navigate in systems that aren't traditionally places you might see a therapist? And that could be the juvenile system, it could be EAP systems. It could be your big corporations are using now therapists to help navigate the complexities in the workplace. So for us, it's about how do we create skills and pathways. And that has been really resonating over the last few years since we started this program.
That's such a great model. I'd love to hear about your efforts to go beyond the US and serve global communities as well.
Sure, we've always been available, but I think that one of the things is always making sure that you're ready when people are ready for information. Not going in and telling them, but waiting till they need you. So that's what our role is. We have had people reach out to us for various things over the years, whether it's they need help building a code of ethics, or they need some resource development stuff. And we try to help and encourage people in any way we can. Over the last year in particular, I did a lot of international travel, working with different groups and really helping to um, reconnect us all. I think what we learned during COVID, before COVID, our therapists were all in person. Technology was not their thing at all. So what you have is the pandemic hits, and all of a sudden, our therapists had to elevate their developmental arc by 10 years or more in a very short period of time. in order to ensure continuity of care and address all the issues that were going on during the pandemic. And what we found is not only did it happen here, but it happened across the globe, right? This was a global issue. And that technology allowed us as a global community start to come together. And we were all sharing resources for COVID and pushing that out. We did a lot of what we call at home webinar series. We invited therapists from around the world to listen to those for free. So, how do we do that and make those connections and provide the training and resources that are needed? And starting to work on sponsoring with other groups. We just recently launched there was a Systemic Family Therapy Association in Kenya that just recently launched. And we're working with that group to help them to elevate what they're doing, get them resources. Some of them will be joining us in our event in November for our Systemic Family Therapy Conference and doing some presentations. And how do we do more things like that? So, how do we integrate the international therapy that's going on, systemic therapy, and also make sure everyone in the US hears that and everyone outside the US hears what we're doing? How do we share that research and knowledge?
I love hearing that it's very strategic and thoughtful and not just, hey, let's go into this country. There's an opportunity there. You're really listening for where it's needed. And that's a really smart takeaway for a lot of associations.
Yeah, I would agree.
So we talked a little bit about access earlier and just access to care. AAMFT has been at the forefront of advocacy and had some recent successes in portability laws. I feel like every time I see your LinkedIn feed go by, it's another state successful so far. So tell me what this means for the profession and where you're focused on in your advocacy efforts here.
Sure. I think I make sure I explain portability. Portability means that a licensed therapist can easily transfer their professional license from one state to another without having to undergo extensive additional training. I can't tell you the number of stories we would hear, and our therapists are way more trained than many other mental health groups. They have extensive training, they get extensive supervision training. So when they get licensed, they are very experienced. So to have someone with that experience go and try to move into another state and be told they have to retake courses, do more supervision hours or other training, it's just mind boggling when there is a massive shortage right now of mental health providers. There is mental health needs across this country, and we need to remove these unnecessary barriers to getting licensed when you have qualified therapists ready to roll. So our goal was for this year, we launched for 10 states and to try to remove these barriers to transferring your license from one state to another. And we are off to a really great start. We have, I think, 5 states we've already gone through, and the other ones are quickly rolling up. And what's been very interesting is that the support across political boundaries that everyone agrees everyone should have access to qualified care. And we need to remove unnecessary burdens. We're not saying water things down. I think that's what people immediately think. Oh, you're watering it down. No, we're not watering it down. We're trying to remove the barriers. Our therapists don't get paid a ton of money. They work in this field because they care about clients and the needs of the community. They're not getting paid tons of money. So to have them spend a lot of extra hours trying to get licensed to go into another state is just mind boggling to me. So we're off and running, and we're already working on figuring out what the next set of states are for next year. At the same time, we're still doing our normal state advocacy work because there's always something that comes up. It may be that you don't have the right to diagnose in a state. Guess what? You need the right to diagnose in order to get paid. That's how our system in the US is structured. It may mean that you can't see a Medicaid patient. Or we had some where we could do Medicaid patients, but we couldn't do the Medicare patients because that's at the federal level. We could do it at the state, but not the federal level. Making sure we're on panels so that therapists can get reimbursed through the different healthcare systems that we have.
Yeah, so you guys are very busy on that front then.
Yes, we went on to steroids this year.
Yes, well, keep up the great work there. Because I think it's going back to the portability, not even just moving to a new state. I'm thinking like where we live, you can so easily go into different states. And so what if they wanted to work in Maryland but lived in Virginia? Then do you have to get a Maryland? So it is so important. And when there is a shortage, why would we limit capable people? So it's really great that you're pushing for that. Let's talk a bit about just our general global climate. I think my gosh, heightened anxiety at the peak for everyone these last few years and just continuing. And also heightened mental health awareness, which is good. But with that, how is AMFT supporting your members to really navigate these challenges while also providing care at the same time? That can't be easy in this world.
No, it's actually something we talk about on a regular basis. We're always reviewing what are the trending mental health topics and working to identify therapists that are content experts in those areas so we can develop training and resources. And then that we can then share that with the whole systemic family therapy community. So even beyond our membership, I think sometimes we get real fixated in associations on just our members, but our members are part of a bigger global community. So that's extremely important for us. As you provide better resources to those beyond your membership, those people will eventually come to you when you become a reliable source for information. And we like to share the resources to help therapists too with their own self care. I think this is really critical. During COVID, our therapists were on the front line working to help people with their mental health while they were also going through the same thing. And we've seen this come up over and over again, whether it was 9/11 or you read in the news every day, you're in the PR business, every day there's something that's coming out. We can't keep up fast enough. There is something every day. And for us, the struggle is how to develop the resources to be prepared when the new thing comes and whatever that new twist might be on it. We've had therapists that have been in the middle of the gun violence at some of the schools. Literally, our therapists were training in the next round while there was a mass shooting going on and having to deal with that and then go back into the community and help people heal. Self-care is one of the other pieces I think that's really important for us is because you can't just stop. It's like doctors. You couldn't stop in the pandemic and say, oh, I need a break. The patients kept coming. And that's true in the therapy world as well.
Yeah, there were so many great things you just said there. One thing I want to just call out for our listeners and make sure they didn't miss was that associations need to be a resource for the whole community, the whole profession, the whole industry, however you look at it from your association perspective. The members will come. Obviously, you have to serve your members. They are your bread and butter and what makes you go. But the point of it is to lift up their profession. So that I think is such a big takeaway for our association listeners out there. We're in the middle of Mental Health Awareness Month right now. I'd love to close out before we go to our lightning round with kind of what is your message for either those considering therapy or for the therapists working tirelessly to support their clients during these tough times?
I think it's important that every day we navigate through systems, families, work, friends, relationships, communities, our schools. Society depends on these systems and the people in them to function at their best to help us move forward. I think people forget that we're not individually working in our own little worlds. We all interconnect, and life is always throwing things at us for us to deal with. Sometimes we can navigate them just fine, but there's a lot of times we need help finding the best solutions. Issues such as health and illness, anxiety, loss, depression, trauma, all these things impact our relationships with those around us. Our members help everyone work through these issues in a unique way by looking at the individuals and their relationships and their environments as a whole. You have to. This is critical if you're going to fix things. Systemic family therapists have a deeper understanding of family systems, awareness, and appreciation for cultural context, and the training to promote healing in the context of one system. They look at these issues within the context of your relationship to create better solutions for long lasting change. It's important to remember that seeking out help doesn't mean you're weak or a failure. It means you care enough about yourself and those around you to get help and find solutions to be your best self and build strong relationships to be successful. This is really critical. It's not about going to get therapy for one thing. It's really about fixing the whole process, right? If you're depressed, that depression is impacting your family, your relationships, your work, everything around you. We can't function at our best selves unless we work through these issues. And for our therapists when they're in their training, they have to get therapy. So they are encouraged to make sure that they take care of self. And that's critical. And even during COVID, that was a very major problem. We had therapists that were realizing that the drive to work, even if it was 10 minutes, allowed them that decompression time. And I think what was important is that they had to remember to stop and take care of themselves first. Like on the airplane, when the oxygen mask drops, put it on yourself first so you don't pass out before you're trying to help somebody else. I think that's a really important need that we all need to be aware of.
Yeah. Wow. So well said. This was just such a great conversation and so many amazing takeaways for our listeners. But before we let you go, we like to do a little lightning round to get to know you outside of the work side of things. So we'll jump right into that. Our first question is easy. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Baltimore and I'm a Marylander for most of my life. There was a short stint. My dad was in the army. We were in Germany and my sister was born. There are days I could probably argue whether that was good or not, but I love her to death. But as when we're kids, it's like, why did you do that? But yeah, I've grown up in Maryland. It's been my home. My husband's from Pennsylvania, but he moved to Maryland and he wound up staying here. So that's always good.
That's great. So what is your go-to Starbucks order?
I don't have any. I don't like coffee. I don't like the smell or taste. And then recently I found out it's because I'm allergic to it. Who knew you could be
No way.
allergic to coffee? I had no idea. I said, that explains why I never liked it. So I don't go to Starbucks.
I'm with you on the not liking coffee. I've actually never had a cup of coffee in my life, but I do go to Starbucks for their hot chocolate. So people always make fun of me and they're like, is that for your child? And I'm like, no, it's for me.
I do. If I happen, I might get the hot apple cider. Every now and then they have the hot apple cider. Not often, but I can
A nice
manage that
treat.
one. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. If you won the lottery tomorrow, would you still work?
Oh, heck no. I would say you would work. I would quit for a while and probably travel the world for a little while. I would eventually do something because I get bored very easily. And if I'm not learning something new, I'm very stagnant. I'm probably not the best person to be around if I'm not learning something new. So I would definitely dive back in and do things, but I would do them at my own pace, right?
I'm 100% with you on this one. You would be shocked how many people say, yes, of course I'd still work. And I'm like, hey, why? You can do so many other things.
No, you could give to the community. You could do so many things. Why
Yes.
don't you keep doing the job? And plus, I've been doing this for over 35 years now. I'm worried about our young kids when they're saying they're going to live to 110. They're going to have to work until what? I don't know, 90? That's
Right.
insane. I'm like, go have fun. I'm like, I'm not telling him to go get a job right now. I'm like, go enjoy yourself.
Yes. Oh my goodness. All right. What is the last show you binge watched? Or if you don't have a TV show, it can be a book too.
Right now, I'm all in on 911 Lone Star. And my husband actually will watch it. He hates anything violent or anything, but for some reason, the drama lines in the Lone Star has got him all in. And I watch Ghosts. I watch so many different types of shows, British, educate, whatever. And right before that, I was cranking through the Harry Potter again and the Indiana Jones because they're just classics and I enjoy
So
them. They're
good.
entertaining.
I love those. I'll do the audiobooks for Harry Potter a lot or something like that. And it's just fun to go back and listen to things like that. I enjoy it. All right. So what's a food you can't live without?
I don't know if there's a food I can't live without. I mean, my favorite is probably Middle Eastern. My husband's family is originally from Syria. So when I first experienced Middle Eastern food, I fell in love. But I like almost any kind of ethnic food or anything that you might find. I like trying them because when I grew up, we had the same meal on every day of the week. Every week, the same meal on the same day. There wasn't a lot of variety. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. So when I finally got out of school and started experiencing different types of foods, I was like, wow, this is exciting. So I'm always willing to try something new.
That's great. I love it. And then our last one. I know you've gotten to travel quite a bit, but do you have a bucket list travel destination?
For me, it's so funny. I think I realized not too long ago that I have been to most of the states in the United States, but there's a chunk that I haven't. So at this point, I feel like, oh, I just need to get those off my list and make sure I've seen it. But every state in the US is different.
Yeah.
And inside each state, there's a lot of different things. And I am a wackadoodle when it comes to looking up, seeing different things that are odd, abstract, obscure, I cite. I find anything that's different and unique in that place. And then what's Roadside America is another one. I find all the weird things, and my son and I will drive around and look at all. And they're all free. You can just look at them, right? But it's so
Yep.
neat to see the difference of things when you travel outside of the U.S. There's still tons of countries to see, right? And I just love finding new places and experiencing new cultures. It ticks me off when I have a friend or two who wants to still go to the chain stores when wherever we are. I don't care. I was just in
Try
Pigeon
something new.
Forge. I was just in Pigeon Forge. Why would I go to the Olive Garden when I can go to a local restaurant and experience the food from that area? So that's my pet. That's my pet peeve
Yes.
about travel.
And support small business at the same
Right.
time.
It's really
Yes.
sad when I see things that have closed up because people have got too chain oriented.
Yep, I hear you on that one. Awesome. Chris, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This was a great conversation. I know our listeners will love it too. So we appreciate you joining us on the A100 today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Association 100 podcast, brought to you by the A100 publishing team, powered by Onward and Upward Marketing and Communications. You can subscribe to the Association 100 podcast on Spotify so you'll never miss out, or listen via our website at theassociation100.com. Follow us for all the latest insights and trends impacting the world of associations. Thanks for tuning in.